together. Davenport's process probably would be looking at this then as maybe adding this as part of the comprehensive plan. Within the state of Iowa, the comprehensive plan is not mandatory, so zoning isn't locked into following the comprehensive plan. Does our Plan and Zoning Commission look at a comprehensive plan and say, is what's going on before them, does it meet the goals and objectives of our comprehensive plan? That is one factor which they would look at. The other thing would be that, yes, there are mandatory portions, looking at number 1 here. Our flood damage prevention ordinance says, and this is mandatory, if you're going to build in a floodplain, a residence, your lowest floor is going to have to be 1 foot above the 100-year base flood level. How you get there are different ways of doing that. So in that sense, there's a mandatory part, but there's an influence as to say, okay, here's your options. Here's several options as to how to get to that point. So it does make it mandatory, but also influence how that development may actually occur.
So you have an existing ordinance that mandates that 1 foot lift, right?
Right.
In a floodplain, but are you sharing with us then that this document provides the influence on how to get to that 1 foot lift?
No, basically FEMA regulations and the flood damage prevention ordinance does that now.
It reiterates
that.
An existing.
Yeah, it gives it in the sense that this were then adopted as part of a comprehensive plan. It gives it a little more impetus, I guess would be one way to say it, to say, okay, here's another thing that says you should be doing this. And it's for the betterment of basically health and safety of the people that live in Davenport, or in this case, Scott County.
And one of the things I think that Laura and Megan's presentation reiterated, and this is something that I like to say as a matter of course, is that to me, a plan is not a noun. Plan and planning is a verb. And so you're never finished, you're never locked in. By their very nature, they sometimes have competing or contradictory aspects to them. And then that's up to the political process to make a determination. The example I give is a comprehensive plan. It encourages protection of natural areas, but it also encourages economic development. Well, what happens then if somebody's proposing an economic development project that's great for the community, brings lots of jobs, but is going to go in an area that got lots of wildlife and is a natural area? That's the balancing aspect of planning. In the same way with hazard mitigation, there's a cost-benefit analysis associated with it. And what we're trying to do with this plan is identify, to a certain extent, the low-hanging fruit, the aspects of hazard mitigation that can be done easily, least expensively, and with the least intrusion into people's lives and the use of their property. But then as measures get more complicated, then you get to those difficult decisions of, okay, do we spend $1 million, and do we really believe that it's going to save us $5 million over the next 5 years? Some people say yes, some people say no, it's a good use of funds. Other people say no, it's not. It's, you're cooking those numbers. So those are the types of things that this plan will assist in identifying, but as the term you use, locked in, I don't feel any jurisdiction will be locked into. It's made to assist us, it's made to help us, and if it helps us, we'll use it. If it doesn't,
So Tim, let me ask you this. Is there a downside to not, if the plan is in writing and it's there to assist the leaders and the politicians and the P&Z and the staff, is there a downside to not moving it forward to Iowa Homeland Security so they can approve it and they move it to FEMA? What if you just have it on the books and you don't submit it up the ladder and people can still consult it?
You don't qualify for funding sources.
Yeah.
That they control.
They specifically asked, they just actually released notice that there's some federal funding available for mitigation. And I looked at the notice of intent, which is what you have to submit in order to get an application in. And they specifically asked, do you have your hazard mitigation plan, and where does this proposal that you're sending us fit into there? Like, we want, what mitigation action is this fulfilling? Or they won't even move on past that.
Yeah, basically, in that scenario, FEMA is wanting the jurisdictions that if you're going to be applying for funding, and this taxpayer money is basically what it is, They want to make sure that you have looked at what you're doing, you're planning your actions within a whole realm of other things, so that you're basically getting the biggest bang for the dollar that's being spent. That's what they're looking for.
And other jurisdictions also. They want to make sure as states and as counties across the nation that they do that.
And I want to say that not every action in this plan is something that is funded by FEMA. Some of these are things that are already in place. They could just be a change in documentation of what they're doing. There's a lot of public education involved in this plan, just so people have a better understanding of what's out there. And so this isn't just a plan saying, how do I get money from FEMA? There's more to it than that.
And I think, as evidenced by the folks that are here tonight asking questions about it, and it's raising awareness that there are methods our community can use to mitigate hazards, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is up to the democratic and political process to determine.
Well, I don't think there's any downside to being thorough and comprehensive, which is what it sounds to me like you're sharing with us, that the reason you put all this into place so that if funding does come through, the funding authority has the purview to say, okay, this is within the context of a much larger picture. It makes sense, it fits, and so forth. I get that. I don't think there's a downside. What I think the concerned citizens have regarding its seating authority, because they dangle the carrot out about the funding for some, whatever it might be. You've looked up the notice of intent. Now they've, oh, there's funding over here, and so forth. And that through that process that we sometimes inadvertently cede authority to somebody outside of our jurisdiction.
Well, then I would submit those comments in writing. So that
well, the specific question I have regarding this plan is there a mitigation action that's proposed in here? I mean, you had the top 20, like thunderstorms and floods and all that
those
stuff.
are hazards.
Hazards. Sorry, hazards. That if you apply for a grant to help mitigate one of those particular hazards, is it feasible that should one of those hazards, and you get funding from FEMA, whichever jurisdiction it might be, is it feasible that when one of those hazards happens, because we've submitted that funding to FEMA and we've taken those funds, that after that hazard occurs, we no longer have jurisdiction of how the cleanup of that is dealt with, that FEMA can step in and say, we're in control, we help fund the mitigation on this? Is it even remotely possible that that could happen?
Well, let me give an example of a potential mitigation. We're dealing with I think it's a not-for-profit organization right now. They're looking at building a daycare center. And one of the potentials, if we didn't have a pre-disaster mitigation plan in Davenport now, we could not apply, or they could not apply for a grant that could make a safe room for tornadoes within their structure. Now, granted, how many tornadoes have hit Davenport, but this past year, a couple have come very, very close. So if you're dealing with children and such, there's an idea of, yes, getting a grant to build a safe room within a daycare center, and it's going to be a community-wide one within the area that it's being built. But if we didn't have that pre-disaster mitigation plan, they could not apply for that grant. Now, the only strings that would be applied to that grant is it has to be used for that function. It may need to be open to the general public in the time of an emergency, such as a tornado or, massive windstorm. But those are the only types of things that would be tied to that. So if a tornado then came in, wiped out the neighborhood, safe room is still there, no, it's the normal process of FEMA coming in, or the SBA or whomever, with disaster assistance afterwards.
Well, as I said earlier, I would encourage you, the concerns that you've shared with us tonight, and kind of rhetorical or specific questions that you want to see local jurisdictions consider or address prior to any adoption. Certainly submit those in writing, and as the by-state folks said, they will actually be included in the plan. We'll have an appendix.
I do have one more technical short question, hopefully yes or no. the workflow process of this, it goes up to Iowa Homeland Security for their review, and they submit it to FEMA. If there are going to be any alterations to the plan that Iowa Homeland Security deems it needs to make in order to comport with FEMA, is this body going to get those changes back prior to going to FEMA?
So are you saying,
Will we see the state, any changes the state asks to be made before it's submitted to FEMA?
as the planning committee or the public?
As the planning committee.
Both.
Either one.
I don't see any reason why we wouldn't put up a changed plan before it was sent to FEMA. We have the website set up so that it would be easy to fix
And
any changes.
I think too, by state, myself, make an evaluation as to the nature of those changes. And certainly if we felt something in our judgment was significant enough to reconvene the committee, we would have that option and we would do that. You know, if it's cross this T or, you know, this word's misspelled, you know, clearly that's not, but anything that's of substantive nature and not, you know, housekeeping, I would say yes.
Yeah. And if we do repost the plan up on the website, like we don't have I think the document up there was scanned and broken into PDFs instead of PDF from the Word document. We do have that PDF from a Word document.
Go to search it.
So you can search it, and we will be putting that up shortly. We just need to work with Scott County.
And that will assist us if we do have changes that we feel are minor. We can certainly reference those and bookmark them so that if any folks don't share our opinion that they're minor, you know, could request us to reconvene the committee too.
And there will be changes from now until then. Some of them are more formatting than anything. If you look in the back.
Then being going to Homeland Security, or then between Homeland Security and FEMA? The latter?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
just throughout, some of them don't really, it's not a text change, it's a formatting change. And therefore, we're not going to put forth the effort right now to make those formatting changes until we know that we have an approved document. So it would be, my specific reference is to that stapling in the back. It's not the easiest thing to read. Some of them are cut off. We will be formatting it so that there's only 2 per page and so that they're easier to read. That's time consuming because there are a lot in there. It's over 100, almost 150 pages of forms in there. We don't want to take the staff time to do it over and over again based off of that was saved to the end, that kind of thing. And that's not something that we would repost until we have a final PDF. Where the little formatting things.
I got you. Ease of use.
How long do we have to submit questions?
Until October 7th.
Okay.
And postmark if you want to mail them in.
Postmark.
You can email in your forms. If you have a comment right now.
You want to go to 500 West 4th Street, drop my off at my office, you're more than welcome to do that. Well, thank everybody for coming. I hope you found the entire process we've had here to be an open one and thorough. Certainly been time consuming. So I appreciate everyone's participation, and we'll look forward to receiving your comments prior to October 7th. Other than that, if there's nothing else, I'll call us adjourned. Thank you.